There are less than 600 people who have made their way across the United States on foot, otherwise known as a transcontinental crossing, or transcon for short. This is a journey that will take you from the East Coast to the West Coast, or the West Coast to the East, and there's no specific route. It's a journey where you'll spend many hours a day on foot, for days, for weeks, for months, and for a few even up to a year. And to give you a little more insight into what that entails, 3,000 miles or more, 12 potential state line crossings, give or take, 12 potential mountain crossings, and that's if you take a northern route, kind of like the one shown here. And if you do hit all 12, that's going to equate to over 100,000 feet of climbing. You're also going to encounter every weather forecast imaginable, from the dry, hot deserts, to snow, to torrential rain, and to wind gusts that are 50 miles an hour that can blow you back as you try to move forward. So let that sink in for a minute. 3,000 miles on foot. Imagine your work week. When you're at work, most of us have a 40-ish hour work week, 8 hours a day. Imagine moving on your feet for that long, every day, for weeks on end. So now you might be wondering, what kind of person is qualified or would even want to take on such a feat? Perhaps an elite athlete with a lot of accolades under their belt, a lot of records, a lot of wins. Maybe somebody with a lot of endurance, a lot of experience. Somebody who's been planning this race for years, maybe, for some. My name is Sandra Villines, and I can stand here before you and say I am one of those people that has made that crossing from the steps of New York City, from the steps of San Francisco, to the steps of New York City and City Hall. I have made that crossing in 54 days, averaging 57 miles a day, in a little under 7 weeks, with no days off. And the interesting thing is, I've always considered myself an ordinary person. I'm a mom, a wife. I have 3 beautiful grandkids. I'm very much like you. The neighbor that you have that maybe you see wheeling their trash bin out in hopes that they don't miss the pickup, although my husband might disagree with you. The person you see checking their mailbox that you wave to. The person that you see standing in line at the Publix, driving to work. I consider myself to be just an ordinary person. I just happen to be somebody who fell in love with endurance running almost 10 years ago, and I hadn't been running for very long when I discovered what a transcon was. And I became very inspired and very curious and very interested, and I was like, wow, who does that? Who does that? And I became very interested, and I remember saying, I'm going to do that, as I've done with many things in the past. Of course, there was a lot of people that thought I was crazy. I was nuts. You're not experienced, Sandra. You can't do something like that. You've only been running for 2 years. People that do that type of thing have been doing it for decades. I'm going to do it. That's what I said to myself. I'm going to do it. So I invite you to listen as I tell a story about one of the lessons that I've learned on this journey that hopefully you'll find some inspiration in. So the 2 things I do want you to take away is, number 1, to have a true and genuine belief in yourself always, and number 2, to find the lessons and find the inspiration in those lessons as you chase those goals and dreams, and remember to always believe. 54 days of relentless pursuit and forward motion sometimes started to feel like running into nothingness. Day after day, and the farther east we moved, I would lose time in daylight because you're moving through time zones. Started to make it very challenging to want to get up in the morning. And there's one day in particular, it was day 43. I had about 2,500 miles on my body. And as I was getting ready in the RV, I could hear the rain hitting the roof. And I had two amazing people that were with me in the trenches on the road, caring for me, as well as a village back home from afar that were keeping us safe through mentorship and watching over us and guiding us. With the two that were with me, my crew, Jay, and he was the one that stayed with me on the road, and Cinder Wolf, who was the guardian of the mothership and took really good care of me. I came out after getting ready, and they were giving me the forecast, and I kind of already knew it was raining because I could hear it hitting the top of the roof. And running in the rain is not my favorite thing. And we had a code name for the washing machine, which was a disposable rain poncho, which I often wore to help keep extra warmth in and the extra wetness out. And I was kind of in a mood where I didn't want to go out and do it. But I geared up, and I headed out the door. And it wasn't long before I found myself in a dark place. Mentally, I was struggling with the rain. The path that I was on, my feet were soaking wet. I was just miserable, having a pity party in my washing machine. Here we are. And it wasn't too much further up the road as I continued on, and I was still moving. I was just feeling sorry for myself and questioning why I was out there. As I moved on down the road, it was a road that was heavily trafficked with these big transporters. And in the Midwest, you see a lot of trucks transporting cattle and hay and all these agricultural goods. And with big trucks come a lot of force. And with every passing fleet, these trucks would wash up these big tsunami-like waves of water that would come up from under their tires and just splash me over and over again, and with such force that it would push me back. It became very frustrating, and once again, I was already in my head, questioning, what am I doing? This is too hard. You don't belong here. And so the mental trauma that was going on in my head, I was not in a good place. And it wasn't too much farther up the road when I finally saw Jay, and I knew it was time for a break. And I was grateful because he had found a place underneath a shop that had an awning that would keep me out of the water. And I marched up to him, and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And he looked at me very concerned. And he said, you don't want to or you can't? I think I was so mentally fatigued that it took a minute for it to register. But this is the moment when I learned there is a difference between I can't and I don't want to. You see, when we say I can't do something, we're saying we aren't physically capable, which we say a lot of times, and we are. But when we say I don't want to, we're making a choice, we're making a decision to not do something. And so I'm taking this in and I'm processing, and I think it took a minute for me to reply, and then I just said, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm continuously thinking about this, and then it hit me. I was telling him I wanted to quit after having come this far. And it was then when I realized that that was a very valuable lesson. And maybe it was the way he framed the question, but ever since then, that's something that I'll always remember, because something about that helped me to kind of reset. Because you see, there was nothing wrong with me physically. I mean, yes, I'd run 2,500 miles. Yes, things were going to hurt. That's normal. But there was nothing wrong with me, other than the fact that I was tired of being uncomfortable. I had given so much energy to the rain and this negative thought going on in my head that I had stopped believing in myself. And so with that, and mind you, this is all transpiring, and it feels like I was there for a really long time at this stop, but it was probably a matter of like 10 minutes. But I managed to regroup myself and decided I was going to keep moving because there was really nothing wrong with me. And from that point, I thought of these three things: patience, adaptability, and grace. Because patience is what's needed when you do something really hard. It can take a really long time. And adaptability, because sometimes things don't work out as we planned, and we have to be okay with that. And taking a different path doesn't mean it's wrong. You can still get there. And now grace. Because struggling doesn't make you a loser or make you worthless. Struggling is where you find strength. Struggling is where strength is built. So with those three pillars, I have a mantra, and we had many, but this was one that has really stuck. Don't quit until the miracle happens. And that kind of embraces all three of those, and that was something that I really leaned on. And I had to remember to really believe that, to deeply, truly believe that I could do anything. So 12 days later, we made it. And I say we because, yes, I was the one on foot, but it was definitely these two individuals that took care of me and helped me get there, so it was definitely a we. And I was really proud and excited that we had completed this run and glad that I didn't have to get up and run again. But the lesson is to believe in yourself even when things get hard. And that's okay if you have to take a minute to regroup or take a different path. You can still do it. We all do hard things all the time. And so when life gets hard, you have to remember it's okay. Just ask yourself, who do I want to be? What version of myself do I want to show up when things are hard? The one who believes in themselves and can take a minute to take a minute and breathe and regroup and continue. That's ultimately what you want to do. So, take a look at the person next to you. Your right, to your left, your neighbor. So the coach next door is simply a metaphor, for you never know who you're standing next to, who you're sitting next to, who you're standing in line next to at the market. That person is capable of doing anything just like you. We are all the coach next door. So I hope someday everybody reaches that finish line they're searching for, because we all have goals, no matter how big or small. And you'll find your miracle at the end, because being a part of history is mine. And this woman here, Cinder Wolf, I'd like to dedicate this talk to her in loving memory. She passed this year. And this is the first time I've publicly spoken about this journey. And I hope that maybe you found a little bit of inspiration in it. And Cinder always used to say, can do hard things no matter what. So I'd like to take a second here to honor her memory, and I'd like to ask you to help me do that. I'd like everybody to just say, I can do hard things no matter what, on my count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I can do hard things no matter what. One more time, please. I can do hard things no matter what. Thank you.